Begin the current Daf, Mesech Taanis Daf Yomi, begin 4 lines down at the top of the Amud. But the Gemara continues the discussion regarding the Isser Rechitza, which is one of the elements that we're talking about over here on the Taanis, which there are different things that are forbidden on these later Taanis. Shiv Kuspan from Kazakh and Cheskel, Trainham Davachai B'Shem is joining us for today's Daf. We're discussing today's Daf, like we mentioned, regarding the prohibition about bathing on fast days, the halacha of mourners during the 7-day mourning period, how to qualify their Isurim. Some important terms of content discussing today's daf are anenu, that's the special tefillah we say on the Taanis. Ma'im she'uvim is the invalidation of drawn waters for mikvah. And begeres is a girl who's 12 and a half. We'll see she has a special status in certain halachas. So beginning our daf, Daf Yud Gimel, 4 lines down at the top of the Yom. We continue with this theme about rechitza on the Taanis. I'm going to offer about Papa and Rav Chizda. It says, Kol shehu, any Taanis that the Chachamim said you're not allowed to bathe. If it's mishum ovel, we're going to differentiate between two different categories. If it's because of mourning, when do you have a Taanis because of mourning? Like Tisha B'Av, where that's because of mourning over the Churban Beis HaMikdash. And for sure, if let's say B'Avel, it's literally a mourner who has the person, the relative that died, that definitely is in a lot of pain. So Asr be'mechame be'mitzayim. So such a person not allowed to bathe, not with hot water, not with cold water. That's one category. So again, either an actual mourner or a Taanis that's because of mourning, like a Churban Beis HaMikdash that's for mourning. So that's Asr b'rechitza v'chamin and b'tzayim. Now, however, kol shu mishum tainig, any fast that's because of we don't want the person to have pleasure, that they're painting themselves and they're making themselves forbidden in pleasure. According to Taanis Tzibur, a Taanis Tzibur is not mourning. It's not the same thing as Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av is a mourning type of a day. A Taanis Tzibur is that we're painting ourselves that Hashem should hear our tefillas. So that we just don't want you to have pleasure. So bathing in hot water is problematic. But b'tzayim mutter, then therefore in cold water it would be permitted. And I'm going to read about oven. So he says, I'll bring you a raya. He says, we learned in the Mishnah regarding Taanis Tzibur like this teaching of Rav Chizda. Because what does the Mishnah teach? It said, that on the Taanis Tzibur we said that they would close the bathhouses. This is what we've said in our Mishnah. Now, the bathhouses is hot water, but cold water is permitted. So you see that on the Taanis Tzibur, which actually Taisus brings that since now in our times in Bavel, which we have in Hagi Bavel, we don't really have a Taanis Tzibur, but Tisha B'Av. So yeah, you're on Shavas B'Tamas, and some Gedalia, you bring some Deravia that you'd be permitted to bathe even in hot water, which his father Biel said no, not to bathe in hot water. That's only on the Taanis Tzibur. We don't even have quote unquote a Taanis Tzibur. But at least in Taanis Tzibur, which was that they needed rain and they were desperate. So in hot water, which we just don't want you to have pleasure, because we want you to be ma'ana yourself. There's no mourning, so there's no problem about cold. It's just a problem about hot. And where do you see that? From the fact that our Mishnah said that on these Taanis, they just closed the bathhouses. What a bathhouse? The hot. Would you go for a hot bath? Amalei Abaye says no. What? That's not a raya. Says v'ibit saying us. Says I don't understand. Even if the Tana would have held that it's not only hot water that's forbidden by a Taanis Tzibur, but even cold water. So then, how should it be as he had said it? He should have said, he should have said we close the rivers, because that's where the cold water is. And the thing is, as Rashi and Taisus similarly explain, like, how could you have closed the rivers? And Taisus says, obviously you can't close the river. So, and therefore says Taisus, so too, you cannot be medayik from the fact that it says, oh, we closed the bathhouses. Oh, only the bathhouses. Guess what? That for the high mix from a hot bath. But the cold baths were open. That's what you're trying to make it right. It's not a raya, because if let's say cold was forbidden, so you would have said close the rivers. You can't close the rivers, and so you can't close you can't stuff up the rivers. So it's not a raya. We only pick the bathhouse because that's the only thing we have control over. But maybe it's not true. Maybe cold is also forbidden. You just, what am I supposed to do? Only have control over the bathhouse. I can't close up every river. I can't go to everyone and make sure they don't take an ice bucket and make themselves cool. So he says it's not a riot. However, I'm going to have Shesha B'nei Davidi, but the son of Ravidi, Rav Shesha, he says, no, you're misunderstanding. Abba, my father, Ravidi, this was his difficulty in the Mishnah, that he was going to infer from that, like Rav Chizda, that by Taanis Tzibur, the only thing that's problematic is hot water. Why? What was his raya? What was his question that he was using as a shpar, as a yichacha? Because it says, Mechti not. Look, let's see. The Mishnah said already that Asr b'rechitza, that on these Taanesim, you're not allowed to bathe yourself. Now, generally, if you say bathe, it means whether hot or cold. So, why do you have to tell me you're closing the bathhouses? I already know it's a berchitza. Oh, I love Shema Minah, and he could infer from that he wanted to tell you specifically, only like the bathhouses, b'chaman aser, and hot water is forbidden. But in the cold water is permitted. In other words, he wanted to tell you it's only bathhouses. Because if it meant both, you're right, you can't close the rivers. But why are you telling me you close the bathhouses? Just tell me the chitza is asa, it would have meant both. So therefore, that was his raya to Rav Chizda for the halacha of the Taanis Tzibur, that the halacha is, it's only aser b'chamen, but it's mutar b'tzayin. That's one of his halachas. As we said, there was two categories. One was Taanis Tzibur, one was aval. Now, says the Gemara, let's support Rav Chizda on his other halacha. That he said that whatever is forbidden because of avelis, because the mourning is forbidden even in cold water, from the following brisa. The brisa says, Kol chiyuv tfilas, that all that are obligated to taivel, let's say a nida or woman gave birth, so taivel kedarkan, they taivel in their normal way, bein b'tesbav, bein b'yom kippurim, even Tisha B'Av, even Kippurim. That's what the Tanna Kama holds, that you're going to bathe on the Taanis Tzibur. Now, on a day of Tisha B'Av, which is that of a morning. Now, what water is this woman tailing in? Ilim b'chamen. If you would think that she's tailing in hot water, tefila b'chamen, tailing in water that was heated up on the fire. Mi'ika, is it even possible to have a mikvah that's hot? But she'uveninu, that would make it drawn, which, as Tosfos explains, that you could prove from here that if a mikvah is totally drawn water, even if it was called hamshacha, which hamshacha, we all know that that's a way of kashering the drawn water, like by having it flow on the ground, that wouldn't help for tailing. We always say hamshacha is kosher. Our women go to a hot mikvah. Yeah, all it means is that it doesn't invalidate a mikvah like other drawn waters. But if the mikvah was made out of drawn waters, it would most definitely be a mikvah that you can't taivel in. So, how can you say that the woman would be taiveling in hot water? It has to go through a vessel. It has to be heated on some heat source. It means you're putting it in a receptacle, and that invalidates it because it's considered as drawn. So, obviously, we're not talking about hot water, a lot of b'tzayin. Rather, we're talking about which she's taiveling in the cold mikvah. Oh, so what are you telling me? B'chai b'tfil is in that only those who have an obligation to taivel because of the halacha of tefillah b'zman mitzvah. Why are we saying a need to taivel on Tisha B'Av? What do we know? It's allowed to taivel on Yom Kippur. It's forbidden. It's one of the chamish shinoim. No, can you tell me the mitzvah of taiveling in this man, which is this is my seventh day, and that would override it because we want the person to purify themselves. So they're allowed to taivel in cold water on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur. The diuk is in the shachrina loy, but some other person would be forbidden not only in hot water, even in cold water, because you're telling me that what's the case of the needed taiveling on Tisha B'Av, which is avelis, is only in cold, because like we said, it wouldn't be possible in hot, because it would be ma'im shuvim. So you see, and only they're allowed to taivel in cold, but a regular person is not allowed to. It's a raya to Rav Chizda, that when it's because of avelis, that isser is not a mecham even by tainim. So that's a raya to Rav Chizda. So on that's the Amar of Chana Bar Katina says it's not a raya. By Nitzcha, the case is necessary ela lechami Tveria, only for the hot waters of Tveria, which are hot springs, which have no problem of ma'im shuvim, because they're not drawn water, they're naturally heated spring water. That's what we're saying, that only those who have an obligation of tefillah, who it's valid for tefillah, they're allowed to bathe in it on Tisha B'Av, but everyone else not, because it's hot water. But maybe cold water actually would be permitted, so it's not a raya to Rav Chizda halacha. Could be that the only thing that's forbidden is hot. And how do you have hot water? Ma'im shuvim is not she'uvim because it's chavit Tveria. And therefore, others are forbidden, but others would be permitted if it was cold water. Says Yomar, wait a second. If that's the case, look at the end of this brisa. That was the opinion of the Tanna Kama. But then Amr Chanin, the Skana Kahanim, he disagreed. He says, no, it's not true that the Nida and the Yeledes will taivel on Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippurim, because it says, Kedayu Ba'isel Keinu, it's worthy the house of our God, which was destroyed, which is why we go ahead and we have Tisha B'Av with all its laws of mourning. La'abed alav tefillah parachas b'shana, to lose a mikvah, ein mulayur kenfnish gain mikvah. It's worthy to lose it because as a sign of mourning. Okay, so he disagrees. He obviously holds a nida and he lets don't go to mikvah on Tisha B'Av. But says the Gemara like this: the Amid, but saying what if you're going to say as you're trying to prove for Rav Chizda that cold water is permitted, so then what did Reb Chanina respond to the Tanakama that you're going to lose a tefillah? What do you mean? Even though you're right that you cannot table in hot water because of covered basically kenu, but yirchetz b'tzainin. What do you mean? But you can table in cold water. You hold that everyone holds cold is permitted. Rather, obviously, that no, that cold is also forbidden. And that's what the machlekes is. Do we lose a tefillah of the nidi ledis or not? But that's not like what you want to say Rav Chizda, that held that tzainin is mutter, that tzainin is aser. He obviously, we said that tzainin, we said, if we said b'tzainin mutter yichatz b'tzainin, right, that for mourning, right, in other words, the Gemara wanted to reject the raya and say it could be that tzainin is really mutter. How can you say that? How can you reject the raya that he's trying to bring for Rav Chizda? That tzainin is aser, because you want to say, no, maybe really tzainin is mutter, because it could be a tomach hamitzvaya. But if that would be the case, then what Reb Chanina Skana Hakam disagreeing, tzainin is mutter. So Amar Papa says, no, it's not true. You can't reject our rejection. It could be tomach hamitzvaya. And that's why we said only those who have a chiyuv of tefillah could table, but everyone else cannot. And because everyone actually maybe holds not like Rav Chizda. And that even for Avelis, you're allowed to table in cold water. What's what you're talking when you're missing a mikvah? And they call it a mikvah. No, we're talking about Asad, we're talking about a place where they don't have cold. They only had a Chami Tveria. And therefore, you're going to miss out a tefillah because you don't let hot water. That was the machlekes. But could be everyone holds, not like Rav Chizda, that tzainin actually would be mutter for Avelis and for the case of Tisha B'Av. So the Gemara continues trying to bring many rayas, not like Rav Chizda. Tashma, from the following brayso. K'shamru asa b'malacha, when they said it's forbidden to do work on the Taanis Daf, la'amru ela b'yom. They only said it that it's forbidden to work during the daytime. B'layla mutar, but at nighttime it's permitted. Additionally, k'shamru asa b'nil sazana, when they said you're not allowed to wear shoes on a Taanis Daf, la'amru ela b'yir. They only said this in the city. But if you're traveling on the roads, which is very hard without shoes, it's mutar. Okay, so how so? So Yitzhak derech, when you go out onto the road, you're out of the city. No, put on shoes. You come back into the city, then you take it off. So to a third category, when they said you're not allowed to bathe on the Taanis Daf, they only said your whole body. But for your face, your hands, and your legs, it's permitted. And v'chein, and this is the main thing, because up until we're talking about Taanis Daf, says the Brayso something you find by someone who is excommunicated, and by a mourner, that they also have the same halachas. Says the Gemara, my love, isn't it saying that you say that same thing applies to a menuda and an aval is akulu, is going on all the halachas you mentioned by a Taanis Daf, even for the case of bathing. Okay, so ubemai skin. So what's the case talking about? If you think to say that it's talking about hot water, you're telling me that panav yod is permitted, and you're comparing it to the mourner. A mourner is allowed to go ahead and wash his hands, his hands, face, and feet with hot water. It says, a mourner can't even stick his finger into warm water. So you can't, it obviously cannot be talking about hot water. Rather, obviously we're talking about with cold water. Oh, so it's talking about cold water. So what do you see? That by Taanis Daf, which was the primary case, which we're comparing aval to, you're not allowed to bathe your whole body, even in cold water. You only let to wash your face, your hands, and your feet. Also, that refutes Rav from Rav Papa, who was saying in the name of Rav Chizda that by Taanis Daf, again we went now back to the case of Taanis Daf, just before we speak about the case of Aval, that we're getting with two categories. Rav Chizda said Aval is also b'chamin and b'tzainin. Taanis Daf is only also b'chamin, but it's permitted in tzainin. But what do you mean? You see that obviously even tzainin is forbidden by Taanis Daf. Truthfully, the case of Toman over here is hot water. Wait a second. Kakashach, he had a difficulty. How can you say that the case of Taanis Daf that you talk about forbidden is only hot water? But then you said v'cheinat ha'moitza b'menuda b'aval, and you say panav yod is permitted, but you can't say that because even a finger is forbidden as an aval. Don't worry, that's a sharakai. Let's go into other cases. On wearing shoes, doing malacha, and anointing. So therefore, the case of rechitza that we're talking about by the time Sibur, that you're saying you're not allowed to do your whole body, is really talking about hot water. But really cold water, it would be permitted even your whole body. Because now that we're saying that the case of Menuda and Aval is not going on rechitza, you can't ask and say, wait a second, if it's hot water, you think it's permitted? Yeah, it is permitted on the other Baraglo. The only thing that's forbidden is called gufay. And rechitza b'tzayin is permitted your whole body. I would compare it to the case of Menuda and Aval. That's only the other cases, not regarding rechitza. Because you're right, rechitza by the Aval is going to be aser even upon the other Baraglo. And possibly even the with signing. Just that we're comparing it is for the other cases. So the Gemara says, okay, Tosh, let's try to bring another raya. Not like Rav Chizkiah. Because the Amar Abba HaKoyin, Mishum Rabbi Yisi HaKoyin, says, Maisa, there was a story of Maisa Bono Shal Rabbi Yisi ben Reb Chanina. His sons passed away. Now, during the whole Shiva, for all 7 days, he was bathing himself in cold water. So obviously you see that Tzainin is permitted by Avelis. You told me, Rav Chizkiah, that by Avelis, you're not allowed to wash yourself now it's hot, now it's cold. Says Gemara, no, they're talking about a different case. Hasam, they're talking about kishatakfu avela hayu. This was that it was he had a doubled mourning, one after another. So when we learned that his sons died, it was one and then another one after that. So that's why they permitted him, because it was actually the second shiva right after the first shiva, as we find by a person's here that we do certain leniencies when it's takfu avelov. The time like going to Bryce, takfu avelov zechasef. If someone has double mourning, one after the other, so he's not allowed to take a haircut. So now hich b'tzayra, what happens if his hair is just very heavy on him? Because now he'll cut his hair. So make a b'tar. So actually he could lighten it with a razor to take a little bit off of it, which Tracy says like through cutting, but not the regular way of like a haircut. Like it says mekel and it doesn't say megalea. So you could lighten the load a little bit. So to mechabes ksuzi b'mayim, you could wash your clothing in water, again, not in the regular way, just in water, as our Amar Chizdi qualifies as Batar. We said specifically it has to be with a razor in an abnormal way, of a little bit of and not with scissors. So too, you can wash your clothing with mine with water, but a little bit nesser, not with earth or some type of a chalk, and not with sand, where that's the normal way of laundering. To whiten it, you're not allowed to wash the clothing in the normal way. And therefore, that's the case we're talking about, that he was bathing in cold water. But generally, could be Rav Chiz is correct, that the Aval Amon is not allowed to bathe even in cold water. Now, the Gemara up until now only had the teaching of Rav Chizda. Now the Gemara is going to bring actually two versions of Rava regarding to this law of Avelis. Remember, Rav Chizda spoke about two halachas. He talked about a caveat of Taanis Daf. He said only Chaman is also, but Tzayin is mutter. And he spoke about Avelis. He said both Chaman and Tzayin are forbidden to wash yourself with. Now, Amar Rava, he says, in the first version, he's disagreeing with Rav Chizda. He says, Avul mutter lirchatz b'tzayin kol shiva. He says, not true. A mourner is permitted to bathe himself with cold water all the 7 days of the shiva. Not like Rav Chizda says that Avul is forbidden even in Tzayin. And he says, I'll bring it right. Just like meat and wine, which is tainug for the person, like cold water, and it's permitted. Just like everyone's bringing over food from this restaurant, that restaurant, to tainug. So he could also bathe himself in cold water, not hot water, but cold water he could. The Gemara says, Mesa, the Gemara asks on Rava from the following brisa. Continue to base. Brisa says that ein ha-begeres. A begeres is generally called 12 and a half. It means that she had already brought 2 pubic hairs, and she's 6 months after that. So she's not allowed to be rishol. She's not permitted l'navlas asma, to disgrace herself, to make herself disgusting. Tisa says it doesn't mean, it just means she doesn't have to, but it means to say that she can adorn herself, so that so for shidduchim purposes, that people would want to marry her. And she can do this b'mei aval aviha, in the days of her father's mourning. So 2 interpretations of Rashi what that actually means. Even if her father has a mourning, well, let's say the father lost his son, which generally there's halacha that if a parent is in mourning, the child himself has to also conduct himself in some form of mourning. So she doesn't have to mourn with her father in her father's mourning. Or even Rashi says, it can even be talking about that the father, her own father died. And even though she is a mourner herself, she's not allowed to make herself disgusting, because for shidduchim purposes, she has to look beautiful so that a suitor, a bacha, would be interested in marrying her. Okay, that's what the Brisa says. But her naira, so let's say she's only a naira, which she's not yet fit to get married until she becomes a begeris. She only just turned 12, and she's not fit to get married, so it is shah. So she's allowed to, well, the Resha, she has to mourn in the regular way. And why are we talking about specifically a naira? Because a minor is not obligated to anything at all. So that's up until 12. 12 and a half, you already cannot make yourself disgusting. A little girl doesn't have any chiyuvim at all. So from 12 and a half, a naira who's not yet fit to get married, she's the one who has to make herself disgusting, as the people are all concerned when they're avelim, like they're not washed and not this and not clean, So that's for the naira. Okay, but it says the Gemara, my lab b'rechitza. When we're saying that l'nav l'satzma, obviously most people feel like this when they're chashom lo'eleinu lo'elechem novel. It's you didn't bathe yourself, and that's the halacha we're talking about here. Okay, ubemai. Now, what type of bathing are we talking about here? That we're contrasting the naira with the begeres. Everything we take, we're talking about hot water. So, in a begeres shah, you tell me that a 12-and-a-half-year-old girl is not allowed to not bathe, meaning that she has to bathe in hot water? But Rabbi Shloimy said, you can't even stick your finger into hot water. How can you say that the 12-and-a-half-year-old girl, who's for shidduchim purposes, it has to bathe in hot water? Rather, obviously we're talking about cold water, cold shower, so she at least looks fresh, but with cold water. And even so, you tell me that the naira cannot wash herself in cold water. So obviously the halacha of avelis is even when cold water is forbidden. That's not like this version of Rava, like Rav Chizda. It's not like Rava who says, no, a mourner can bathe himself in cold water. You see that you cannot bathe even in cold water. Says it's not true. This halacha of nivel is not going on bathing, because bathing taka, it's not just a begeris, even the naira, any person could bathe themselves in cold water. What's this that was saying that the begeris is permitted and the naira is forbidden? It's about kichul, painting, upirkus, and braiding. We're not talking about bathing at all. We're talking about the braiding of the hair, and the washing of the clothing, and the painting of their face, meaning the makeup. That's what we're talking about. That is permitted for the begeris and forbidden for the naira. But bathing, everyone's permitted according to Rava. Says let's support Rava, which again was a question on Rav Chizda. We're using that now as a right to Rava who disagrees with Rav Chizda. There's a story. See, he took cold showers. So you see, like Rava, who holds that novel is permitted with cold. Says, no, they said there's one where he had a double avelis one after another. The Tanya learned the Brisa that we have certain leniencies. If someone took hold of him strongly these mornings one after another, here is very heavy, make a batar, he could lighten it with a razor. He could wash his clothing in water. Which Rav Chizda, he qualified as batar, specifically regarding that of a razor, not with scissors, but mine with water, not with any type of some of these detergent ingredients. But again, we make them a little bit, so therefore, it's not a riot to Rava that when they took cold showers as permitted. Now this is all one version of Rava. Again, that Amri, that those that say a different version of Rava, that in this version he's actually saying like Rav Chizda. Amar Rava says no, Aval is forbidden to bathe himself in cold water all 7 days. Again, just like Rav Chizda. Now says the Gemara, but what's different from meat and wine, which you had mentioned on Lamed Aleph in passing from Rashi, that meat and wine he's permitted, and he's allowed to have tainuk. So why are you saying he can't take a cold shower? Says the Gemara, no, hasam lefakuche pachti. There, when he is eating meat and wine, that's just to diminish his anxieties, his worries. So therefore, they give him food and wine to get over the trauma of the loss and to help with the mourning. But a cold shower is not to help get over that anxiety, and therefore, that's not going to be permitted. Says the Gemara, again, the first version had it as a question, this version has it as a support. Let's support this version of Rava, which is like Rav Chizda. The Brisa said in the Begeris a Begeris is not allowed to go ahead and disgrace herself. Now, Hanaira Rasha, but a Naira is permitted to disgrace herself. So b'mai, what are we talking about? Ilam b'cham never talking about that it's with hot water that the begeris is allowed to and the nair is not allowed to. In a begeris shower, really the begeris is not allowed to not take a shower in hot water. Means she takes a shower in hot water as a mourner. But Rabbi Chizar says, but again, there's a little bit repetitive because of the different versions. I am one that's forbidden to stick his finger into hot water. And love it. Obviously, we're not saying that the begeris is taking a shower, a hot shower. She's taking a cold shower. And the nair is forbidden to take a cold shower. So that supports this version of Rava that Aval is forbidden in cold showers. It's not a right because I kichol pirchas. We could be talking about her makeup and her braiding over here, which that's only permitted for the begeris, not for the nair, but regarding that of showers, there's no right. Some of Chizr concludes. He says, this tells us that from the fact that we're telling you that a regular girl can't even braid her hair and can't even put on makeup, it's only for the begeris that we let that. So then you would obviously follow along and say, so too other things that are similar. A mourner is forbidden to do laundry, to wash their clothing all the days of the Shiva. Same idea, not to have fresh clothing. And the Hilchasa follows the Gemara. The halacha is like this: a mourner is not allowed to wash their whole body. You can't take a shower all the days of the Shiva, not hot water, not cold water. Now, but regarding washing their face, their hands and their feet, still b'chamanas. You can't use hot water. You can't even stick your finger into hot water. But some cold water to splash on your face and your hands and your feet, that would be permitted. Avalasach, but to anoint oneself, to smear, that that even a little bit amount is forbidden, because there's no reason to allow that. But v'mla'ava esazuama mutter, which we have the same halachas on Tisha B'Av, which is that, but if it's to get rid of some filth, then you'd be able to smear yourself to get rid of that. That wouldn't be a violation of the halacha of Sicha. Now going back,
this halachas is also from Rav Chizda, or
who's saying this? This sounds like This sounds.
They didn't mention Kibbutz Mekuda.
Oh, didn't talk about Red. Who's saying the halachas is good? Is that a continuation of Rav Chizda, or is it just the Gemara saying it? Yeah, not clear.
But is Kibbutz Mekuda depends if a person has or doesn't have
clothing?
Yes.
I mean, if he only has one garment.
Yes.
You're not supposed to change.
Right, and you're not
if he
blushing.
has, obviously he can't.
What?
If he has, obviously he can't.
Right. If he has other things to wear. Right. But let's say he has only one thing. Right. Yeah. So the Gemara says that we had mentioned previously regarding that we mentioned Anenu on the fast day. So now the Gemara goes back to that topic that Sleisa de Tanisa, regarding the prayer of the Taanis, which we say a special Anenu Hashem shall listen to us. So where exactly do you mention this in Shemayna Esrei? So Adbrei Rabbi Yehuda le Rabbi Yitzchak Birei. So Rabbi Yehuda took his son Rabbi Yitzchak for a walk. The Darshan expounded as follows. So Yached Shekil of Taanis. If an individual accepts a Taanis, Mispal shal Taanis, we had mentioned this the other day, that Taka Yachid would say the tefillah of a Taanis, it'd say Anenu. Now, but where is he going to say it? He's going to say it ben goy l'roife. He's going to say it between Gol Yisrael and Rafeinu as its own bracha. Now, but Maskal Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak, his son, asked his father, he says, Yachid, think an individual is so significant that he should be keveh bracha la'atzma, that he should make a bracha for himself to add on to his Shemayna Esrei, anaya bracha, because he's as a Yachid making a Taanis? So Elam Rabbi Yitzchak, rather Rabbi Yitzchak disagrees. He says, b'shemei tefillah. Actually, the Yachid is going to make it part of the bracha of Shemei tefillah, which is going to conclude Shemei tefillah. With that bracha, with chasim, it sounds like that's going on, whether a Taanis or whether on anything, as Tosfos brings the actual nusach as we do it. Where exactly do we do it? Before you start saying Ki'ata Shemei tefillah, Amchu Yisrael b'rachamim, you say Anenu, and you don't make a bracha at the end like Shteich Tzibah does. Rather, you say Ki'ata Shem Oini Mei Savo Meshiach. And then you end up Ki'ata Shemei tefillah is Am Zaberachim Hashem Shemei tefillah. That's how a Yachid does it, and that's our minig. Chem Rav Sheshet is b'Shemei tefillah. So the Yachid says Anenu by Shemei tefillah. But the Gemara says Meisi. The Gemara asks in the following brayso. Brayso says Im ben Yachid letzibur. There's no difference between the individual and the public by a Taanis. What's the difference? Now the only difference is that a Yachid, an individual, he's mispal on the day of his Taanis Shemayna Esrei. He davens a regular Shemayna Esrei because he includes the tefillah of a Taanis in the bracha of Shemei tefillah. But But regarding a tzibur, he's mispal to she'esrei. He davens 19 brachas because he has a separate bracha between Gol Yisrael and Rafa'enu, which Rashi points out. Although we really know that Shmoyne Esrei is not really Shmoyne Esrei, it's actually 19. But that's because the bracha of El Mashinim was instituted in Yavne, as the Gemara says in bracha of Chokaz Mabeis. But therefore, we still call it Shmoyne Esrei. So it means 19, and that would mean make the other one 20, but we call it 18 versus 19. Okay, so wait a second. So my yachad, my tzibur. What do you mean when you say that individual is going to have 18 brachas and the tzibur is going to have 19 brachas? If you say when you say an individual, you mean literally an individual, and the tzibur means the shliach tzibur means the one who's davening for the amid. Hani tashas, right? What do you think the shliach tzibur makes 19 brachas? What do you mean? Esther va'arba haba. He actually makes 24 brachas because, as the Gemara brings later on to Zvav Ma'alav, there's 24 brachas that would be said on the day of a Taanis, and here you're saying 19 and not more. So how could you say it's too much shliach tzibur? Rather, wait a second. So this is what the Bryce must be saying. It's not talking about the shliach tzibur. It's talking about a yachid. And ein ben yachid, we're saying there's no difference between an individual. That is the kibbul of taanis yachid that accepts his own private taanis. The yachid should kibbul of taanis tzibur to another individual that he's fasting a taanis tzibur. So it's not the shliach tzibur. It's a yachid by a taanis tzibur. There's no difference between them. The only difference is right? The one who has his own taanis, he davens a regular shmoyne esrei. But zemes bal tashas, right? And the one who's fasting a taanis tzibur is going to make another bracha. Wait a second. So Shmamina, we see from this that a yachid that accepts upon himself a taanis tzibur is keveh bracha la'atzmai. When he's accepting a taanis tzibur, he makes his own bracha. Rabbi Yitzchak says that no, a yachid doesn't make his own bracha, as is not our minhag. We don't make a separate bracha when we're davening between Gol Yisrael and Rafa'enu. We make a parashmei tefillah. So, but this is refuted because here you see that a yachid that's mekabel a taanis tzibur is going to make his own bracha. You see that there's another bracha that he adds on. It says, "Go loylo." It's talking about, when we're kind of interesting here, the yachid and the tzibur is talking about the shliach tzibur. Now, the kakashlas, the difficulty you had was shliach tzibur esrin v'abamasli. What are you talking about? Shliach tzibur doesn't just daven 19; he davens 24 brachas. It says the Gemara begimel taanis rishaynis. We're talking about, if you remember, there's 3 series of fasts. We said it 13 in total. There's 3. If they're not answered, another 3. They're not answered, another 7. Here we're talking about the first 3 fasts. The leka esem arba. They don't introduce these new 6 brachas, as we'll see later on in the parak, what these 6 brachas are, until later fasts. So there's no 24. There's only a regular shmoyne esrei. But the shliach tzibur, he says the bracha of anenu between Gol Yisrael and Rafa'enu. So therefore, that resolves the difficulty, because the truth is, we are talking about the shliach tzibur because the yachid does not make his own bracha. So well, really, Beloi? You don't say 24 brachas by the first 3 fasts? And because you're giving this whole answer saying tzibur means the shliach tzibur, and the shliach tzibur only means say 1 extra bracha, is that about nenu? But the yachid taka says of a shmei tefillah because he doesn't say extra 6 brachas. That's so. But v'o'im bein ketani, the words are, there's no difference. Where do we find this? The Mishnah says ein bein gimel rishayim is the gimel size. There's no difference, says the Brisa, between the first 3 and the middle 3. Ella, the only difference is Shabbat Elu, by these, meaning the first fast, which are not so severe, Matar Basis Malacha, they're allowed to do work. Ube'elu Asurim Basis Malacha, and the middle ones are forbidden to do work. That's the only difference. Halachav Dal, but for the 24 brachas, Tzeves HaShavan. It would seem like they're the same. As Rashi points out, the Gemara at this point assumes that the middle 3 do have the 24 brachas. From the fact that the Gemara answers that no, the first ones don't have 24. The inference is that the middle ones do, which Rashi says, as we'll see, not necessarily so. Could be that only the last 7 have 24, and not the middle 3. But at this point, the Gemara assumes that the middle 3 also has 24. So if the middle 3 has 24, and we have a Bryce that's saying there's no difference between the first 3 and the second 3, but that of Asiyas Malacha, so the inference is, but for the 24 brachas, that they are the same. So how could you say that there's no 24 brachas by the first fast? Well, says the Gemara, no. Tana, the Tana of the Brisa that's saying that there's no difference between the first and the middle, is he learned and B'shayr, and he left over. When he said Ein Bain, it's not precise. As we'll see later on, there are other differences. Says, well, wait a second, my shayr, the high shayr. What was left over that you're leaving over? In other words, it's not normal for a Tana to leave over one thing, like you're saying, of the 24 brachas, you said there's no difference but this. And to leave over one thing, you wouldn't leave over one thing. If you're leaving over a whole list, a whole tzadl, fine, you're not going to say everything. And you're saying Ein Bein is Lav Dafka, which Taisus discusses, is Ein Bein Dafka or not Dafka. But Al Kapanim, you wouldn't leave over one thing. So what the Gemara asks throughout Shas, what else was left over that you're saying something was left out? Moreover, too, another difficulty is, but Ein Bein Gedani. The Gemara doesn't like the answer. It says Ein Bein. How can you say shiur? So the Gemara says, Ella, rather, the truth is that the 24 brachas are not by the first 3 fasts. So why wasn't it mentioned in the Ein Bein? Because Tana be Isur Kamayim. The Talmud only talking about prohibitions, like work. The Tfilas Lemai wasn't talking about prayers. You're right, there's another difference between the Chavtal and brachas. But we weren't discussing that. And again, we still could hold out our answer that when we said that there's a difference between the Yachid and the Tzibur, one does 18 brachas in Shemona Esrei, one does 19, was the Shlich Tzibur. And the Shlich Tzibur is going to make its own bracha, but the Yachid would not. Shlich Tzibur, what, 19, not 24? Yeah, we're talking about the first 3. But or the Gemara says, another answer you could give, which we had alluded to before from Rashi, is that actually you were asking from the Ein Bein Rishonis Lemtzoyis that, and it doesn't mention the Chavdal Bracha, so you wanted to prove that the first ones have Chavdal Bracha. No, to the contrary, it doesn't say Ein Bein, because the middle ones also don't have the 24 brachas. Only the last 7 are the ones that have the 24 brachas, the extra 6 brachas. Says the Gemara, V'loi? Really? The middle 3 don't have the 24 brachas? But the time when the Brisa says, Ein Bein Gimel Shnius, there's no difference between the middle 3, L'Sheva Achroin is to the last 7, Ella, the only difference is Sheva Elu, by the last 7, Masriyin, they blow the trumpets, the shofar, they close the stores, as the Mishnah teaches, now Holachol Devreim, but for everything else, meaning for the 24 brachas, Zevazeh Shalom, sounds like that they both have. So you see the middle 3 do have the 24 brachas. And Pechitim maybe going to say, like you answered before, that, oh, you're right, we learned, but we left over that another difference is the 24 brachas, but the Ein Bein Ketani. But it says Ein Bein. Ein Bein sounds like there's no other differences. It says, you really think Ein Bein Dafka? You really think that Ein Bein means there's no difference? We left out the bima, where the last 7 they would take out, as the Mishnah teaches on later on Daf Tezvav, that they would take out the Aron, and that's only by the Gemara brings only by the last 7, and not by the middle 3. And it doesn't mention that there's a difference between the middle 3 and the last 7. So you ask me, Ein Bein, it means there's nothing else to be left out. It leaves out taking out the Aron. It says, no, Imisham Teva. That's not a raya to show me that Ein Bein is Lav Dafka. Because Lav Shiur, that wasn't left out. Because we weren't discussing things like taking out the bima. Why? Because Mili did Sinakatani. Only things that are in private, that discreet, that, let's say, they scream out in the shul, and the 24 tefillas are also in shul, that we would learn that's contrasting the middle 7 and middle 3 and the last 7. But middle the Behasar like Tani. But things out in the open, like taking out the bima to the city square, that we weren't talking about, and therefore that wouldn't have gone into the Ein Bein. So that's not a riot to me to show me that Tana B'Shaya. Now Rashi says, Masnin Daman Nedeki says actually the Mishnah is also precise to show that actually the middle 3 and the last 7 actually do have the 24 brachas. Because the Tani we learned, meaning not like what you're trying to say, that you can't say, and you're trying to say Tana B'Shayir. No, you can't say Tana B'Shayir. And yes, Ein Bein is Dafka, and Tiv is not a Raya. And where do you see that Taka, the middle 3 seem to have this halacha like the last 7 of for the 24 brachas? The Mishnah says, what does the last 7 have more than the middle 3? Only over here we blow the shofar, we scream out, and we close the stores. But for everything else, including the 24 brachas, they are the same. And if you're going to say, but here also in the Mishnah was also Tana B'Shayir, and then you're right, they left out the 24 brachas, but you're saying these, what are these, which sounds like specifically these things. And there's a little bit back and forth, so just you have to help couple of it. So the Gemara says, you think it's logical? That ma'elu dafkahu, that when you say, oh, what are the differences, like our Mishnah spells it out, that means precise, but v'shayla teva, but it left out taking out the bima, like we said, that the last 7 would have it, not the middle 3. Says, well, no, Imishim Teva, if it's because taking out the Teva, Lav shiur, that's not left out. Mishum B'kochashav L'Be'idach Pirka. As Taisa says, we could have said this by the previous question also, and not have to say Mil Defahas Lekatami, but no, that's because that's mentioned in the next parak. Whoever's learning the Mishnah over here will also learn that Mishnah over there. And the reason why we didn't say it is because we're relying on that Mishnah over there that says that by the last ones that take out the Teva, which you don't have by the middle ones. So therefore we didn't say that, but it is specific to what we're saying, and that the 24 brothers would not be a difference between the middle 3 and the last 7, because you didn't mention it. Ma'elu is dafka. And the fact we didn't say Teva because that's in the next parak. Says Gemara, wait a second. Hashta aslahachi, that now that you came to this, that you're saying because it's mentioned in a different parak, so it's not considered like it was left out. So then Esrim Arba Nabi. So then the 24 brachas that you're saying that the middle 3 and the last 7 are the same, you could actually say now back to what we had originally wanted to say. That actually maybe it's not the same. And maybe that for the middle 3 is the same as the first 3, which is actually like the original answer we wanted to give to actually resolve for Rav Yitzchak. To say that actually the Yachid does not say his separate bracha of Anenu. He only says in Shemei Tefillah. And that when we had a brayso that says that there's no difference between the Yachid and a Tzibur, but one has 18 brachas, one has 19 brachas, which is actually talking about the Shlich Tzibur. But we asked, Shlich Tzibur doesn't have 19 brachas, there's 24 brachas. No, he does. You know when he has it by the first Taanis. Wait a second, doesn't it say there's no difference between the first Taanis and the first 3 and the middle 3? And the middle 3 has 24 brachas? No, not true. The middle 3 don't have 24 brachas. But wait a second, doesn't it say there's no difference between the middle 3 and the last 7? Yes, but the reason why Lav shiur is because the Ketanya Lav Be'idach Pirka. Is because it's taught in the next parak that it only mentions by the last 7 that you have 24 brachas and not by the middle 3. So therefore we can say like our original answer that by the first Taanesim you didn't have 24 brachas. And therefore when we said that the Tzibur is going to say 19, didn't mean a Yachid who's Mekabotai and Tzibur, because the Yachid never says his own bracha of Anenu between Goli Sor and Feinu. It meant the Shliach Tzibur. And the Shliach Tzibur, could be, is going to have only 19 brachas, not 24, because that'll be by the first fast. Whether the first 3 or even the middle 3. Because Ein Bain between the first 3 and the middle 3. And the fact that we say that, but why doesn't it mention between the middle 3 and the last 7 when it says Ein Bain? Oh, because we're not mentioning things that we're going to see in the next parak anyway, that we only mention them by the last 7, or don't mention them by the middle 3. And therefore, we are really maintaining our original answer we gave for Rabbi Yitzchak. But the Gemara concludes Mahabala, so what happened for this? Where does a Yachid say Anenu? So Rabbi Shmuel Basasartoi, he says Ben Goyel L'Reife. He says, like his father had said, like Rabbi Yitzchak's father had said, Rabbi Yehuda, that you make your own bracha during Goli Son Rafeinu. Rav Ashi Mashmei Rabbi Yana, but Rabbi Shmuel, he says, no, you say it b'Shemei Tefillah. The Hilchos of B'Shemei Tefillah. That is the halacha. That's how we do it. The Yachid says it b'Shemei Tefillah, and the Shlich Tzibur he says it as a separate bracha during Goli Son Rafeinu. Thank you to any time.